How to handle anxiety? Important question. And unfortunately, it's an issue that more and more people are dealing with, especially with this pandemic. It has caused a lot of anxiety for people to surface for various reasons. Anxiety is basically a fear. It's basically fear. It could be free floating, or it could be attached to a particular person, thing, concern, etc. Regardless, whenever we think of anxiety, there is its connection to uncertainty, some kind of a fear of loss, not being able to have a say over anything, feeling of being out of control, unpredictability, etc. All this, as I said, has been exacerbated by the pandemic. So learning to handle this is important. Of course, on the absolute level, Vedanta Shravanam reduces anxiety, especially if it is done regularly. That regular is important, not once in a while. कभी कभी मेरे दिल में वेदांत का ख्याल आता है. Yeah, there is one song, कभी कभी means sometimes. Once in a while I think of Vedanta. ये नहीं चलेगा. This will not work. It is a committed pursuit. That's why it's called a committed pursuit. Committed pursuit that helps one to not get committed. Okay? Yeah. So, that of course is the way to relieve or get rid of anxiety completely, because in this revelation, the I, the self, is revealed to be nothing, there is nothing other than it. Because anxiety needs an object. Even if it's free floating, it's floating from one object to another. Very interesting. But here there is nothing other than you. And you don't even cast a shadow, like the groundhog to be afraid of its shadow. You are all light. You don't cast any shadow. And so it is not possible to be afraid. This is described very beautifully in the Taittiriya Upanishad. Na bibheti kutaschana iti. Because the source for anxiety is not there. Anxiety means, what will something do to me? What will someone else do to me? That is not there here. And that is on the absolute level. But on the relative level of the everyday, also the Taittiriya Upanishad discusses and talks about relief from this fear. Na bibheti kadachana iti. He is not afraid. This person is not afraid at any time. Why? Because there is sharanagati, surrender to Bhagavan. This is the benefit of Ishwarizing the universe and all the things in it. Because then you have a place to take the fear, to neutralize the fear. And that is the altar of surrender. And it is called altar of surrender because it has the power to alter the fear. That's why it's called altar. And at this altar, you lay all the fears, and you can say so much in the prayer to Bhagavan. This is not, I don't want this, please take it away. That is why the Lord is called Hari, Harati, takes away whatever you don't want. Oh, but I'm into Lord Shiva. Hara, same thing. From the root verb hr, to take away. What does the Lord take away? All the papas. Because of papa only, because of karma, anxiety comes. And so the karma phala is neutralized, all the papas are neutralized due to this surrender. And this is a very good mantra to chant. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Very beautiful. And it's a wonderful mantra to chant because you are telling the Lord what to do. Take away, take away, take away. All that doesn't belong. Take away regret, take away fear, take away this feeling of being out of control. Take away the uncertainty, which is the raw material for the fear. You're asking the Lord to take away. It's a very powerful mantra, even though it doesn't have the customary, Shivaya Namaha. That Namaha is not there. But it need not be there in order to be a mantra. Because, the Lord knows what to do. You're invoking Lord Rama and saying, take away. You're invoking Lord Krishna and saying, take away. When all those things are taken away, what remains is the glorious I, which is to be discovered, to be assimilated, to be enjoyed. So this is the two-pronged approach, according to the Shastra, to deal with fear. And then, even on the everyday level, sometimes what happens is that it's not just fear, one is afraid of the fear. One is anxious about anxiety. So, we take the time to invite the fear to come and have a cup of tea. Give it also a cup, make another cup. Give it a cup and say, okay, Bolo, what do you want? Why are you troubling me? Tell me why you are here. What is it that you would like? Let it talk. And then you say, oh, this is what it is. And the fear is nothing much really, not something that is out of bounds for one to handle. So, taking the help of Bhagavan and working on it on a daily basis. And sometimes there's just far too much to do. One takes on too many things. Reducing some of the things. Resting, because everything has its time. One is not a machine, You need rest, you need recuperation. Even the phone has to be charged once in a while. What to talk of human beings? And that charge, that recharge comes from prayer, comes from relaxation, comes from meditation, comes from satsang. All this, we help ourselves. And then, it is handleable. As a child born in an individualistic society, yet culturally taught to value collectivist principles, can the two coexist? How so? It can coexist with some difficulty. I suppose we are talking of the experience of a Indian child born in America or something like that, culturally taught to value collective principles. It is difficult because there is you're not the only teacher. There are other influences at school, etc. Neighbors, friends. There is intense peer pressure, so much so that the child is has that feeling of needing to fit in, wanting to fit in. And it is difficult, it's not easy. But it can coexist. And it does so many times, in so many ways. Because what you have taught is the truth. And what do we know about truth? Satyameva jayate. There might be time, it may take some time. It may take some experimenting, all that. But every being's heart wants to be one with everything. Every person would love to be compassionate. Every person wants to be kind. Nobody wants to be angry. Nobody wants to be unkind. Nobody wants to not share. Nobody wants to hoard everything. And so, sometimes those tendencies easily get eclipsed, especially in the youth years, where one tends to be self-centric anyway. But those samskaras that you have put in will hopefully shine. It is difficult. Peer pressure is a very big thing in this country. Then, my ashram friends and I have discussed how many of our parents actively listen to the talks. Very good discussion. Extremely good discussion. And attend camps for so many years. Even after gaining all this knowledge on letting go with their children, teaching their children to be happy then rich, or even understanding the impact of anger of their words, the parents come home and it is as though they have forgotten what was learned. Or do not apply into their life. I know I am not perfect, but seeing this duality raises concerns for my friends and I. What are your thoughts? I am with you. That is my thought. I am totally with you. Yes. Yeah, there appears to be a disconnect. I trust you. Yes, there appears to be a disconnect because they are anxious about you. They are anxious and they want everything to go right. They feel fallible. They feel unsupported. They feel small. And you may ask, how come they do all this, even after going to the ashram for so many years? To this I have to say, imagine if they did not go to the ashram for so many years. If now the situation is like this, if they did not go to the camps, if they did not attend Bhagavad Gita, what is that called? Home study groups, and if they did not do all this, फिर क्या हाल होता? Imagine. Yeah. So we be thankful at least they are attending. And this is good because you can call them on it. You can call them on it. Lovingly. I think you are getting angry now, Mom, Dad. Would you like to discuss it at another time? You can say this. You can give them a choice to discuss it a little later, perhaps. So that they have some time to just not, what did you say they do? Anger, yeah, words and anger. So they don't go to the place of anger, etc. So you can offer them an option. And in fact, you can make a pact at home, everybody. I will not discuss these things when I am angry. And you give the significant other and the children the right to tell you when you are angry. And you have the right to tell them in the family when they look angry or they appear angry. This way everybody grows together. It's really beautiful. Except when somebody points out to you, I think you're getting angry. At that time, you should not blow up at them. Who said I'm angry? I'm not angry. I'm not angry at all. I think you were imagining it. Then it won't work. If it's a pact, then it's a pact. Then everybody grows together. That is the idea. So, the parents are trying. And they are trying their very, very best. Believe it or not, when they work on themselves, you do see the effects of that. So if their best is not good enough, it is not their fault. It just shows how pervasive this Atma Ajnanam is and how many obstacles in Sanskrit called pratibandhas there are to overcome this. It just shows that it's a very humbling thing. It keeps one in the right place of being a student, learning, studying, assimilating this knowledge with commitment, with an attitude of karma yoga. So, once you see that, then their flaws, real or perceived, will also be there in a slightly different light. In fact, many of them wanted you to study Vedanta. You means all of you and your ashram friends. Because many people come to me and say, I really want my child to study this knowledge. And I say, it is for you. You study and then you embody it. And this really is a nice statement here. You embody it because actions speak louder than words. If you go and tell your children, Lord Krishna said this, Bhagavad Gita says this, Arjuna studied this, it's, as we say, goes in one ear, not out the other, out the same ear. It boomerangs back. But they are watching, they are intelligent. They are watching how you conduct yourself. They are watching what you do, not only what you say. They are intelligent. They have understood so many things. They surprise all of us. Today I met a young one and he said, the pandemic has been very difficult to be with oneself, A 10-year-old told me that. And I said, well, in a way it's been also good because one is not socializing. And he quickly said, yes, but everybody is socializing more and more with their gadgets. You see? Yeah. At age 10, they know all this. They know what you're studying. They know Lord Krishna said, Aratihi Jana Samsadi, go to a place bereft of people and, choose such places for your self-growth. Don't be in crowds all the time. So they are listening. They may not understand everything, but they do catch a lot of what is going on. So it's good to not underestimate them. And it's good to respect the youth and make some kind of pact. The other thing you can do as a family is have one weekend day be an only appreciation, no criticism day. That also improves a lot of things. If you feel like criticizing, you turn that into an appreciation. And this way we grow together. We grow along with the loved ones and everybody grows to be strong spiritually, emotionally. Very nice. That was fun. How do we perceive the concept of time and space? I understood as it as we perceive in the mind. That's why in deep sleep, when the mind is put down to rest, we don't know time or space. Is this correct? Yes. In today's class, morning class, it was mentioned the pramana for time is Sakshi, and the example was that we know when 10 minutes have passed. Can you please elaborate? The pramana is not Sakshi. The pramana is Sakshi Pratyaksha. Sakshi Pratyaksha. Meaning an internal witnessing. That's what it is. Even with space it happens. Suddenly you get a creepy feeling. You haven't even turned and looked back, but you get a creepy feeling as though your space, your personal sense of space is being encroached. And you look behind, somebody is indeed too close for comfort, standing right there, hovering behind you, or following you when you're going home at night. How do you know this? This is what is Sakshi Pratyaksha. I don't know what else to elaborate. That's basically what it is. It's an internal witnessing, which applies to emotions, which applies to space, time, so many things that are internally witnessed, counted, etc. Then, in Shloka 10 of Laghu Vakya Vritti, it says, so too consciousness hidden by mental activities can be seen between two cognitions. Who is seeing the consciousness between two cognitions? Of course, everything is within apostrophes. How can I see this consciousness within myself? Just like we saw, that's why we had a little bit of a demo in the meditation. So, the mental cognitions, as it were, when the thought, cognition is just a fancy word for thought. So when thoughts, experiences, impressions, etc. crowd the mind, they just tend to come in a whole train, unstoppable train. And then what happens as a result is this feeling of being crowded out and then not having any space. And it's not that consciousness is not there in the thoughts. Consciousness is there. Consciousness is, that's why thought is. Thought is consciousness. Consciousness, being limitless, is not any one thought. Okay? That is something to assimilate. So, in any thought, there is the variable and the invariable component. The variable component is the object of the thought, whatever you are thinking of. Whether it is within you or outside of you, it's immaterial. Whatever you are thinking of, that is the object of thought. That keeps varying, but the invariable I, that consciousness is there, upholding every thought, taking every thought back unto itself, so to speak, sustaining it, in which it arises, in which it sets, by which it is sustained, is consciousness. So it's not that consciousness and thought are two different things and you have to stop thinking and then consciousness will come. No. That which doesn't come or go is consciousness. So then that is the variable component. The invariable component is that consciousness which upholds the thought. That consciousness is the content of the thought. It morphs as the thinker, it morphs as the object of thought, it morphs into the means by which the thought was cognized without becoming any one thing. Like the waves. The ocean can have one small wave, big wave, middle wave, etc., but they are all different avatars of water, which has no name, which has no form. So just like that, that consciousness is there. And if you would like to understand this, to understand this, it's helpful to watch the spaces between the thoughts. I, aham, that's all that is there, which is Svatasiddha Atma. I, now. And that now is forever. Now is not a length of time. It is that which is there forever. Now is Ananta. Now is Ananda. It's all now. You can't see the consciousness. You can be that. And that is what we say, Brahman. How to make the mind like that of a Jeevan Muktha Purusha? That's easy. Become a Jeevan Muktha Purusha. Then you will enjoy the mental frame of the Jeevan Muktha Purusha. I went to Pujya Swamiji once and asked him, how do you do all these things that you do? And all these things at that time meant, trying to get some kind of a itinerary of his, some 10-day trip was being organized. And 10-day trip means there's only this many weekend days, maybe 3 or 4 weekend days. And everybody wanted Swamiji to come to their town and to come to their house and to come to their, their everything on Friday, Saturday or Sunday. And the rest of the time, nobody wanted anything at all. So, and they were fighting, each person in each town was fighting with somebody in the other town. They found out their phone number just to fight with them. And he's coming to my town. What do you mean you need weekend? And Pujya Swamiji solved it very nicely. So I went and told him, I said, this is what I'm having a lot of trouble. And they found out each other's number, Swamiji, and now they are all, they're not speaking to one another, they are shouting at one another. What to do? He said, give me all the numbers. I said, okay. I had it already on a page, and I just gave it to him. And I was getting up and going, because I thought, okay, I'm done. He said, no, you sit. I said, I sat down. And then he said, bring me the phone. Phone was there, somebody brought him the phone. And then he looked at the first number, and everybody offered to, dial it. He said, no, I'm doing it myself. And then he dialed the number. And then it rang. Somebody answered. This is Swamiji, he said. Oh, Swamiji! Swamiji, you're really calling me? Yes, I'm really calling you. And pleasantries were exchanged. How are you? How is everything? Wonderful. How are the children? How is this? And then he sounded like a baby. You don't want me to come to your house on a Monday? No, Swamiji. You must come any day is okay. Thank you. Then the next number. You don't want me to come to your house on a Tuesday? No, Swamiji. Please come on a Tuesday. And in 3 minutes, the whole trip was done. Whole thing was done. Very beautifully. And he looked at me triumphantly. He was just so happy with himself. He just looked at me and looked at all the people assembled. He said, this is how to do it. This is what to do. And then I was just, flabbergasted. I said, this is something fascinating. How did this happen? So I asked him, how do you do all this? And then he said, I'm so glad you're asking this question. He said, my mind is just like a river. He told me this. This is exactly your question. How to make the mind like a Jeevan Muktha Purusha. First we have to find out what is the Jeevan Muktha Purusha's mind. So, he said, just like a river. It flows, it is in the now, it is here. And right now, right here, I just asked them a simple question. Don't you want me to come to your house on a Monday, or on a Tuesday, or on a Wednesday? That's all it was. And then that was all taken care of. And then it all just fit into place. He says, because there is already a flow. He said, I just go with that flow. That flow, the name of that flow is Ishvara. I just go with that flow. And I said, no, Swamiji, you have become the flow. And then there was kind of a silence, and he quietly said, yeah, that too. He acknowledged it. So here, in this example, what do we see? We see a complete and total absence of any personal agenda. Nothing to be gained, nothing to lose, nothing to accomplish. This is all, even the trip, the tour, everything was driven by the people involved. It had nothing to do with him. There was nothing that he wanted to do. There was nothing that he particularly liked to do. His whole life was daya, daya, daya. Seva. How can I be of help? What can I do to help? His whole life was that. And that is what it takes. And until that happens, we can help ourselves by watching the Mahatmas, how they flow, how they conduct, how they do what they do, and use those qualities, cultivate those attributes as stepping stones to becoming that, if that makes sense. And we have that discussion in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, and where Adi Shankara says in the Bhashya, the Jnani Lakshanani, the Lakshanas or the signs of a Jnani Purusha are the sadhanas for the Jnani wannabe. Yeah. So the Jnani wannabe imitates the Jnani not in food or dress. That is not the point. You can mimic the Jnani in compassion, in accommodation, in having in enjoying mental quietude, emotional non-reactivity. Those become the sadhanas for the Jnani wannabe. Another place this is discussed in the Bhagavad Gita is the last 6 verses of the 12th chapter, 14 to 20. There also you can find wonderful clues. Adveshta sarva bhutanam, maitra karuna evacha. All these are qualities. Adveshta. No hatred towards anything. Sarva bhutanam. Maitra. Maitri means cultivating a kind of a friendship with everything. Karuna. The person is very compassionate. Yona dveshti na kankshati. Further it is told. The one that does not have any hatred or expectation for anything or hatred for anything. These are all things that can be studied and emulated. Then one can also enjoy what the Jnani enjoys. How to overcome negative mood? I think it's the same person, handwriting looks same. So, how to overcome the negative mood? You have to define what is negative mood first. If it is anxiety, then we follow all the things we were talked about earlier. If it is some kind of a sorrow, depression, etc., that too again is helped by the same things, including, especially sorrow is helped by changing the channels mentally. Seva helps sorrow. And seeing the bigger picture is very, very, very important. Otherwise one gets caught in some kind of a solipsistic situation. Yeah. So those are some of the ways. How to resolve the apparent contradiction between acceptance of life as Ishvara Prasada and decisively choosing a full stop when certain thoughts arise. Choosing a full stop and learning how to choose the full stop is also Ishvara Prasada. Thoughts are Ishvara Prasada, but then learning how to tune them out or how to put a full stop and not let them affect is also Ishvara Prasada. It's just like any Vyadhi. Vyadhi means disease. Disease is what? Ishvara Prasada. And then you go to the Vaidya, doctor, and Vaidya gives medicine. What is medicine? Ishvara Prasada. Both are Ishvara Prasada. So, one doesn't have any kind of precedence over the other. Ishvara Prasada is attitudinal. It's an attitudinal way of going about life. Very helpful, very, very wonderful. And so, that is how it is. So, I don't see the contradiction even on the apparent level. Acceptance of life and choosing a full stop. In fact, acceptance of life as Ishvara Prasada includes choosing a full stop when certain thoughts that are unwelcome keep arising. Hope that made sense. I'm not a heretic. In the 13th shloka, Jiva is Savikalpa, but Brahma is Nirvikalpa. But to make a proper decision, Brahma has to weigh good and bad and then make a Nirvikalpa decision. You are giving entitlement to Brahman. Many bad things happen in the world, but nobody blames Brahman because of entitlement. Yeah, this is a very interesting question and dilemma many people have, because the Brahman is associated with good and bad. There are like this pandemic. Why is Bhagavan allowing this pandemic to happen? Pandemic is universally bad. You ask anybody from any corner of the world, they'll say it is terrible. It is, alienating everybody from everybody and all these things. Everybody will unanimously say it is terrible. But that doesn't make it terrible. Because that it is terrible is a point of view. The view is what? Perhaps there was an overhauling, karmically speaking, there was an overhauling needed. We are attributing agency to Bhagavan that Bhagavan doesn't have, because Bhagavan is following the laws of karma. Bhagavan, in fact, is manifest as the laws of karma. Whose karma? One's own karma. All our karma collectively. and individual karmas, or bring about certain favorable or unfavorable situation in the world. So this agency, attributing agency to Brahman, which is free of action, here is a kind of a transference. We are projecting onto Brahman what it is not doing, because that Brahman is you really. And so therefore, this is, so that is one thing. Second thing is, even if we talk about good and bad, even if we say, okay, Ishvara should know better, why is Ishvara doing such terrible, terrible things? And that is because we are saying it is terrible. There was obviously some kind of a big overhaul needed. And maybe, I'm just joking here, maybe Mother Earth put in an application to Ishvara and said, offload some souls because it is just too much. And there is some way in which we learned, as a result of this, we are learning to live closer to earth. Really. Because one thing is, what was that called? Some kind of supply chain thing. So many things you want, you're not getting. And this becomes a huge thing in America. But if we look at it in the sense of, okay, so is this dispensable or is this thing indispensable? Always, most of the time the answer is it is dispensable. So then that forces us to look at locally sourced things, starting with produce, starting with everything. And this, what is that? The privilege of being able to eat mangoes in the dead of winter, we need not have. So it comes somewhere from New Zealand, it comes from Mexico, wherever. We need not have that privilege. We can give up that privilege. And perhaps in giving up that privilege, we have a, what is that called? We learn to eat with the seasons. Maybe there is something to that, Ayurvedically and otherwise. We learn to eat within certain means. There are certain limitations and parameters. So some good things are also there as a result. Vedanta has flourished in the pandemic. And people who would not even say, oh, for online. I mean, they just had no, they just would not do that. Now, they're all taking classes online. And so Vedanta has flourished. So many other things have flourished. Different ways of connecting have flourished. In fact, I think we are, according to certain calculations, we are already in Dwapara Yuga. There was one Swami, what was his name? Sri Yukteswara Giri, who said, we are in Dwapara Yuga. He made certain calculations. And Pujya Swamiji actually accepted that. He said, yes, because all the gadgets are getting smaller and smaller, more and more ubiquitous. And this is a sign of Dwapara Yuga. And SMS and other kinds of communication, etc. This all shows Dwapara Yuga. But anyhow, so what is Brahman? We understand properly first, and that Brahman is that which is existence, which is the source of everything that there is. Nothing can exist without Brahman. Nothing can move, nothing can do without Brahman. But Brahman is neither the mover nor the shaker. It imparts its sentiency, blesses with its existence, and has what is called limitlessness, is limitless, boundless, all-pervasive, and it is you. So we are not giving entitlement to Brahman. We are understanding it as non-separate from that conscious person who I call myself. That is what we are doing. We are not giving it priority or letting it off the hook, etc., etc. You don't need to let Ishvara off the hook. You can go and pray and say, how dare you do this? What were you thinking? Don't you see how much we are suffering? These are all prayers in our tradition. In other traditions, that could be seen as blasphemous. It could get one kicked out of the religion. But here, this is a valid prayer. Even the Sri Rudram has a nice few choice words for Bhagavan. Drape, meaning you ugly looking one. You call him Bhagavan. He's the holiest prayer. Andhasaspate. You blind or what? What's wrong with you? Daridraha. You know? What is it? What are you doing? And you're coming after me with your arrows and your anger. This is a kind of a, psychological transference of our own pain on Bhagavan. This culture has got such a sophisticated understanding of Ishvara, it allows us to do that. That's why Bhagavan is a super therapist. All the iconography, they're all smiling and giving Abhaya, mudra, Abhaya Hasta, which means, don't fear, I am here. That's what it means. They're all smiling. So that you can get angry at this altar. That's why it's the altar of surrender. Surrender includes anger because one has to, deal with so much pain of the world in one's own life, etc., etc. So, by all means, do not let Ishvara off the hook. No problem. But in understanding Vedanta, that Brahman which we are understanding and assimilating is none other than you. From the standpoint of the devotee and devoted, you say Jiva Ishvara. Learnt Vishnu Sahasranamam, learnt Lalita Sahasranamam. Very good, fantastic. Still to learn many other prayers, many other things. How to realize I am enough? Learn Vedanta. Yeah, that is what. Learn Vedanta. The more you study Vedanta, the more you understand I am enough. And in fact, this is a good affirmation. Sometimes it helps to have affirmations. So it's a good affirmation to say, I am okay, I am enough. That can be a nice nididhyasana. Keep telling that to yourself, I am enough, I am enough, I am enough. Enough. So, then, in Sunday schools we are teaching affirmations to kids. For instance, I am confident. In puja, we ask Ishvara to give courage, strength, etc., which is better. And why can they be mutually exchanged? Why can they be? Why can't they be? Must be, I don't know. Yes, you can. In puja, you see, the affirmation works because the parents are giving it to the children. In puja, it works because it is a karma. It is a karma, it is a prayer, and which has a result. So, give me confidence, that is the prayer. So, what does the prayer do? The prayer neutralizes the previous karmas standing in the way of having confidence. And initiates new karma phala of the prayer, which can result in confidence. So prayer is more beneficial than the affirmation in a way, because prayer means you're asking something, you're involving Bhagavan, you're bringing Bhagavan into your life, you're inviting Ishvara into your life. And that is very, very powerful. You're forging a relationship with Ishvara. You're taking care of the hidden variables that could come in the way of confidence, etc., etc. And so that is why it is powerful. So prayer has karma phala. And if you keep saying, I am confident, Ishvara will think, oh, they're already there, and go away to help somebody who is praying. So, this is good to pray. Can you elaborate on the meaning of the word atha? Bhagavan's meaning of the word, but not clear of atha. It's just Atma. Okay. Yeah, can you elaborate? Yeah, on the word Atma. Thank you. The M looked to me as H, Atma. So it has again, from the standpoint of a grammatical derivation, karma phalani atti. The one who eats karma phala means no other choice, okay? Eats karma phala doesn't mean that, okay, eats rasagullas one day, eats gulab jamun another day, jalebi day third. No. Eats means it is put in front of you, eat. No choice other than to eat karma phala. So, atti karma phalani, this is one derivation of Atma. Means who is it referring to? The miserable Jeeva, the complaining Jeeva. Then another derivation is apnoti sarvam, vyapnoti sarvam, that which covers everything, that which pervades everything, without which nothing can be. That is also Atma. Here it is referring to Bhagavan, Brahman, Ishvara. So the same word, from two standpoints, describes this, both the birds in the Mundaka Upanishad, that as though dual experience. One is mithya, one is sat. That is what it is. Why is it called Laghu when it is a Mahavakya? It's a nice pun because all Mahavakyas are Laghu. Yeah. Aham Brahmasmi, Prajnanam Brahma, Tattvamasi. Nobody sits and they are in a kind of a sutra form. Nobody sits and writes Mahavakya like, the Jiva, which is like this, is actually Ishvara, which is like that. That is not Mahavakya. That is actually the teaching of the Mahavakya, the unfoldment of the Mahavakya. Mahavakya, by necessity, has to be pithy, short, succinct. So the Laghu is a pun because all Mahavakyas are Laghu, and in relation to Vakya Vritti, which is the second part of the question, what exactly is a Vakya Vritti? Vakya Vritti is a composition again attributed to Adi Shankara, which is, I think, about 52 verses. And that unfolds two Mahavakyas, Tattvamasi and Aham Brahmasmi. This is Laghu Vakya Vritti because it is only unfolding one Mahavakya, Aham Brahmasmi. Okay? Yeah. You mentioned about deferred gratification as a solution to overcome problems related to sense-related challenges. But that still is apparently slow, and many a times the issues creep back up and we might end up starting all over again. Can you advise how to overcome this challenge? Deferred gratification, what does it do? It's very slow. And at times the issues creep up. Yeah, there could be relapses. One doesn't want to eat something, or one doesn't want to do something. One doesn't want to watch too much TV, but then some kind of there's usually a trigger for that relapse. Either some upset happens, or something happens where one is in a rush and one forgets the sankalpas that one made possible. Ho sakta hai. And so the point is not about how slow or fast it is. The point is to love oneself up and to be patient with oneself. Because habits are formed quickly, but they take a long time to break. And so one has to be patient and not too hard on oneself. One has to, because first there is the relapse or there is a creeping back of old patterns, and then there is the judgment of the fact that there are old patterns and they have crept up. So all that, one is patient with oneself. Patient with oneself. So patience and love. Love towards that relapse. Relapse also is within the scope of things. Within the scope of growth, there is place for relapse. So you see it objectively, and then it doesn't become so much of a challenge. A slight attitudinal tweaking, that's all. Please tell us more about Nataraja Nritya, dance of Nataraja. Is it about lives where they go and from where they come, etc.? Signed, Mumukshu. So, Nataraja, it's not about lives where they come, where they go. It's not about life or death. It is about that light of Brahman, Bhagavan, yourself, from which this entire universe is set in motion, so to speak. This is described in the last chapter of the Karika of Mandukya Upanishad. Gaudapadacharya's Karika, which is called Alata Shanti. Alata is a kind of a thick incense stick, which I think even a few decades ago one was able to buy. Even now perhaps it is there in some temples and religious shops. It's not those very thin incense stick, thick incense stick with a big fat red tip. Thick agarbatti is called alata, which would glow like a firebrand. When you go in a dark meadow on a Amavasya night, on a new moon night, you go with this joss stick, with this thick incense stick, light it, and then you can write your name in the sky. You write your name. And then you say, then you get very little more ambitious. You draw a cat. And then you can visualize it meow. Then you draw a dog. Now the cat is saying and hissing at the dog. The dog is growling. It doesn't like this cat at all. And then you draw some hills. Then you draw some birds. You draw the sun. You draw the moon. You draw people who love each other, who belong to one family, people who do not like the neighbors very much. And so that also you draw, some conflict you draw. You keep drawing, you're so lost in the drawing. You have actually become one with the drawing, it is not separate from you. And then you whirl it, and then you draw clouds in the sky and so many things. And then the hand gets tired, you stop. what is there? One tip of glowing light. That is the dance. You forget yourself. You forget that it's a glowing tip, because it can do so much. It's whirling with you, it's dancing with you, it's jumping with you, it's leaping with you, with your imagination. It's going places where you have never gone before. It's helping you give expression to all your fancies, your flights and thoughts. You draw everything possible. And then you just stop, and then you see all that is one glow. One glow that is still, that is as though moving, that is as though doing everything, which is really not doing anything. The whole universe, one glowing tip. The whole universe, one glowing self. Something to really contemplate on. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.